Hey everybody, Fall Obsession Podcast is brought to you guys by Hoot Camo. I started rocking Hoot Camo last year in the 2023 season. I hunted in Colorado, I hunted in Texas with it, in the snow, on the plains, CRP fields, Texas hardwoods, you name it. Super impressed with the gear. It held up phenomenally, both in cold weather and just durability wise, walking through prickly, sticky stuff. I should have tore up my hoop gear by now, and I haven't, and that speaks volumes to me as an aggressive bow hunter. So if you guys are wanting to check out a good quality set of camouflage and get into one at a price point that you can afford, then I recommend you guys go check out Hoot. If you go to their website, use the code FallObsession15, that will save you guys some money at checkout. They also have everyday casual wear, fishing gear, golf gear, a bunch of other stuff. And again, a price point that is attractive to the blue collar hunter. So, hootcamo.com, go check them out. Elite Archery is another Fall Obsession partner. I've been shooting an Elite bow for several seasons now, continue to love them more and more every year. Technology in the archery industry is an awesome thing these days, and Elite is making the most of it. I can talk all day about how good my Elite bow is, but what is going to change your mind or convince you that it's the right bow for you is by going and shooting one. So I encourage anybody who has never shot an Elite or hadn't shot one in a long time to go to your local Elite dealer, take the Elite Shootability Challenge, and see what you think. The Outdoor Call Radio app is another podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV, he has created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession podcasts playing on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. So go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today. It is free and you can start streaming immediately. And go follow their Facebook page and follow Outdoors Dan on social media. Outdoors Dan does a couple of different live radio shows at local Midwestern radio stations, a couple different times a week. And even if you're not local to those stations in the Midwest, you can catch those live broadcasts streamed on his Facebook page. So the Outdoor Call Radio app, go download it and go follow Outdoors Dan. Ridge Rock Hunt Company is another partner over here at Fall Obsession. Derek Eves over there in Mississippi, he books hunts with vetted and trusted outfitters across the country. So if you're looking to book that next hunt, that once-in-a-lifetime experience perhaps, then give Derek a call. He'll work with you on all the details and help you find something that works for you. Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Go check them out. Finally, thank y'all again for listening to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. Wherever you are listening to this podcast, whatever app or streaming platform you might be tuning in on, be sure that you hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever they have for you there. Turn on notifications if that's an option. That way you get notified each week when we drop a new podcast episode. Check out Fall Obsession on social media. We're on all the major social media platforms. And head on over to the website, fallobsession.com. That's where you can find all of our content, all of our shows, all of our films, all that kind of stuff that we have going on over here. And if you want to help support a small-time hunting brand, you can pick you up a hat, a t-shirt. We got some cool designs on there for you guys. So fallobsession.com is the website again. Go check us out. Be sure you're following on social media. And with that, we are off to another Fall Obsession podcast episode.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, welcome back everyone to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash, and I'm your show host over here at Fall Obsession Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm doing another solo podcast, and I know this is coming very quickly, very promptly on the heels of our first one that we ever did. And if you guys have missed that, it's episode 186, Passion or Pastime is the title. Again, our first solo podcast. And if you have tuned in, you know that I had some big reservations leading into that one about doing an episode all by myself. without a guest. And I mean, that's part of the reason why it took 186 episodes for us to put one out. But as I got into it and as I got rolling and started opening up and being able to share a lot of the stuff that have going on in my life and a lot of the struggles that I have, even just within Fall Obsession, within this podcast, and equally as much the passions that I have for hunting, the outdoors, Fall Obsession, and other things in my life outside of that. I really got going, and I felt like it was almost therapeutic for me and some of our more passionate Fall Obsession listeners to probably get to hear that side of things. And I say all that just to say that I'm doing another solo podcast for two reasons, and one of them is probably not a good one, but again, I always want to make sure that if at all possible, we have a new episode for our listeners every single week. And us doing solo podcasts over here, or me doing solo podcasts, definitely opens that door and gives us more opportunities to stay consistent in that regard. Because, you know, as a show host, you have guests that cancel, you have guests that reschedule, and some holes that kind of develop in what seemed like an airtight recording or publication schedule. So that's one reason, probably not the best reason. And the other reason is because there is a topic that, even in the short period of time since we did the last solo episode, that has just been on my mind. It's probably honestly been on my mind since last hunting season. And I just decided, why not? Why not sit down and talk about this? And I told you guys in 186 that when we do solo podcasts here at Fall Obsession, I want the subject matter and the topic to have some substance behind it. I don't just want it to be like, oh, I gotta pick whatever to talk about just so that I have an episode. Yes, I want to make sure we have an episode every week for y'all, but that being said, it needs to be a topic that is worth everyone's while, including me as the host and including y'all. So today, what I want to take a few minutes to talk about are two words that put together can mean a lot, and that is archery only. If you guys have listened to our show for a long time, if you guys have watched our films, our series, our shows on YouTube or Carbon TV, you probably know by this point that I am a bow hunter, and exclusively a bow hunter. And that's what I want to talk about here today. I want to talk about my journey in archery. I want to talk about why, because I've touched on it as it's come up in different films or different podcast episodes, but I've never just completely dove in head first and dedicated an entire conversation or an entire episode to this topic. And I do plan in the future, I don't know when, but I do plan on building upon this later on as well. I recorded an episode recently, episode 189, titled Russian Brown Bear, with a gentleman named Brett Rossell. And his handle online is Backcountry Bow Hunter, and he's exclusively archery only. And I want to have him or some other individuals of similar mindsets as him on the show to talk about, the bow hunting only mentality and everything. But I've had it aching inside of me, and I want to share this. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about why I am archery only. And it really, it kind of came to more of the forefront of my mind, and I've questioned it. I question it every year, honestly, as far as what am I doing? Why am I going bow only? But last year, Colorado, flatland mule deer, spot and stalk with a bow, most challenging bow hunt of my life, undoubtedly. And I'll get into that, but at the same time, when it was all said and done, it reaffirmed for me why I only bow hunt, and what it means to me. So I want to start off with those two words, archery only, because you buy a license, you buy a tag, Especially, you know, when you're putting in for draw applications and certain tags and that kind of stuff. And those two, if you put in for an archery tag, those two words are typically in some form or fashion stamped on there somewhere: archery only. And it's a challenge, right? That's how any bow hunter is going to look at it. But the greater question, as far as like, we can all be passionate about archery, right? And we can have guys that are passionate about rifle hunting, long range shooting, all that kind of stuff. And I know a ton of hunters, more than I can count, that hunt with bows and hunt with guns every year. They alternate between the two, or as the seasons change, depending on where they live, they go back and forth, whatever the case might be. I know a ton of people like that. But it's when you put that word only behind the archery that you got to ask the question, and that's why. Why would you limit yourself? And that's the question that I have been asked by other individuals is, why put yourself in that box? You can take a rifle out there every single year and fill your tags, or make it easier, or guarantee, all but guarantee success, you know, however you want to look at it. But why? Why go bow only? And I want to dive a little bit into my archery industry and share that with you guys. Again, I've touched on this topic and danced around it, lightly gone over it over the years and throughout our shows and our episodes, but today we're diving in. And in 2013, it was December of 2013, and that was the year that I shot what is still my biggest buck to date. And no, it is not one of these deer on the wall behind me in the podcast video. He's big enough, he gets a spot in the living room at least. But this buck is, I think he taped out at 139 7/8. So literally an eighth of an inch shy of 140, and he was an 8-pointer. Stud of a buck. But it was one of those hunts where I was hunting from a high up vantage point where I could see so much. And we just had a winter, like a winter storm, an ice storm roll through, so the roads were bad, and we took a long drive out there, and by the time we got out there, you know, to the hunting lease in Texas, it was too late to actually go down and get in a stand and hunt. So I just sat on this ridge that kind of weaves its way through the property and overlooks a lot. And long story short, I end up shooting with a rifle that day, the biggest buck of my life. Still to this day, the biggest buck of my life. And a side note on that, it's 2024 now. This was in 2013. That is the last mature whitetail buck I have killed to this day. I've shot culls and management bucks. I've shot a mule deer, I've shot a pronghorn, but I have not shot, killed, and recovered a mature whitetail buck since that day in 2013. And I can talk a little bit about that later on, but that experience, while I was ecstatic to kill the biggest buck of my life, that is ultimately what made me go bow only, because it was so easy. Because in a split second, I was able to reach out at 130 yards and take down a buck that I'd never seen before, that I had no history with, that just happened to walk out there 20 minutes after I got there. And we all have those stories, right? We all have stories where things just, as soon as we get out there, they fall together, and things happen like that, fall together like that. And I know there's plenty of guys out there that have that same experience, just with a deer that's closer and they killed him with a bow. But for me, that's what changed my mind. That's what shifted my focus to going after it with a bow. And my dad can tell you, when I first started bow hunting, it was not a glamorous journey at all. My dad exclusively rifle hunts now, and my entire life growing up with him, he only rifle hunted. Long before he ever had me or met my mom or anything like that, or I guess he had met my mom, but before I was ever a hunter in the picture, he did have a bow for a brief period of time, and it was one of the very first compound bows that ever came out, that Hoyt ever made. And he hunted a year or two with it. I think if I recall correctly, he killed one deer with that bow, and then just went back to rifle hunting. It wasn't his passion, and that's okay. But he saved that bow is the point I'm making. And so when I started kind of having an interest in archery, he passed that bow on to me, and it did not fit. When he first handed it to me, like it's a 70-pound bow. I can't even pull it back when I first got it. And I tinkered around with it and messed around with it long enough to where I could finally pull it back. And then I was like, okay, well, now I got to get a release. Let's get a target and some arrows and stuff. And again, my dad had years and years and years and years ago, at this time, he had a couple years of archery experience and just the equipment that came with it back then. And no other effort or really knowledge about archery, so I was flying by the seat of my pants. Nothing fit, nothing was built right. It was an absolute mess. And the first target I had, if you think about like a wallered out insert on a 3D target, right? And just that's, you've shot it every day for months and months and months and just worn that insert out. That was my whole target. The whole block that I had that was just like that, because I was so bad at archery. Basically, I could not hit a paper plate to save my life, and nothing was built for me, right? So when I was a teenager, I got connected actually through I found a local bow shop through the Realtree guys, actually, like the big name Realtree guys like Waddell and T-Bone Turner and these guys, and they were coming to town and they were visiting this local archery shop, Cinnamon Creek Ranch. And so I was like, well, I gotta meet these guys. Like, I've grown up watching the Bone Collector and Realtree in old Monster Buck VHS tapes and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I've watched these guys growing up, so I got to meet these guys. So they were coming to town. That led to me finding the shop and quickly realizing how out of touch I was with where I needed to be to, develop this passion for bow hunting. And that was one of the first jobs that I had in high school, was working at part-time at that bow shop. And that's what led to me getting my first, what I call real compound bow, newer modern compound bow at the time. And yeah, that's what got me, that's what kicked it off and got it started for me. I got a bow that actually fit me and everything. I was working at a shop almost every day of the week where I was exposed to it. I was around archery. I was picking up, stuff on how to be a bow tech and everything. I was selling customers bows and all this kind of stuff. So it was like, this is, my interest was throttling up in it, and I was gaining, knowledge and confidence in archery, and I had the right equipment to do it at that point. So over time, I went through a few different bows and kind of changed my setups and played around with stuff, and I got my first archery kill under my belt. And at this time, like this is still, we are still very pre this 2013 experience. So I'm still doing both, right? I'm still rifle hunting and bow hunting. So as things progressed and everything, and I got more comfortable with my equipment, that led to me, when I actually graduated and was looking for a full-time job, I went to work there full-time as a tech. And this is before I decided that I wanted to be a firefighter, which is the career I have now. But so that led to me diving in a whole nother level. Like there's a knowledge level right on how to work on your own equipment and how to work on bows, but then I got to go beyond that. I got to dig even deeper into bow teching, basically. So that's in a nutshell kind of how I got into archery and everything. And then again, talking about this experience um, in 2013 that made me go bow only. It seemed so easy, and I don't know. I was so, at the time I was just so focused on archery, and I was so intent on having bow hunting being part of my identity. We talked in 186, yeah, about identity and your identity as a hunter and everything, and I wanted archery that bad. I was like, I want to kill everything with a bow. And at the time, I'm only deer and pig hunting. I'm not even traveling or going to other states or anything like that. And then the question comes, and this is me now looking back in hindsight at, a thought process 11 years ago that's led to me still upholding that same model, and am I too prideful? Am I too in it? I guess to, is it just a badge of honor that you wear, and you are walking around like you're too good for a gun? And I don't think that is it. And I don't want anybody to think either that I don't have hunting firearms, or that I don't hunt with firearms, period. That's not the case, because for me personally, and again, this is all my personal outlook and my personal preference, basically. But there are times when I do lean back to a firearm, and really the only times for that are down here in Texas with, like, if pig hunting, or like varmint / predator hunting, like coyotes and stuff like that. Like, yes, I will carry a rifle in my truck, and if I roll up on pigs or I roll up on coyotes, that kind of stuff, I'm gonna have a rifle so that I can take care of business. But if I'm bow hunting and pigs or coyotes come out, I don't take a rifle to my bow stand just for pigs and coyotes. If I'm bow hunting and a pig or a coyote comes out, I'm going to use my bow. And then certainly for all my big game hunting efforts, archery and bow has been the route that I've gone. And to answer my own question that I just threw out there on the pride side, like, am I too prideful? Am I looking at this whole thing the wrong way? First off, I just put it plain and simply, I don't think I am. I am fully aware of the ease or the opportunities that have been missed, as far as I could have killed more deer probably by now if I rifle hunted. I could have probably shot a mature whitetail buck in the last 11 years if I rifle hunted. But that's not why I do it. I have the utmost respect for these animals, and I am very far from the guy that just goes out there to kill. That is not me. I do not get a thrill at all out of just simply killing an animal. Not one bit. I believe that there is a purpose that these animals serve. They are on this earth for a reason, and that reason is that they were put here by God in the beginning for us as humans. And you can go across any animal out there. You can go through all the game animals, and I believe that they were put here for us to hunt and to be able to provide for our families, put meat on our table and meat in our freezers. That's why I think game animals are here. Same thing with you can get even into farm animals with cattle and chickens and all this other kind of stuff that are farmed and raised for meat, for provision for humans. And I believe that that is the purpose that these animals serve. Going back to the big game, though, I believe that's why these animals are here. That is one of the big reasons that I'm a hunter, right? Because I am doing this to provide for my family. we can talk about the therapeutic side of hunting in the outdoors. We've done that before. I won't get into it in this particular podcast. I got into it a little bit in 186, if I recall correctly, but excuse me, these animals are here for us and for our own provision. With that, comes a level of respect. I respect the purpose that these animals serve, and I believe that it is my responsibility to manage the provision and the gifts that have been given to us, right? We talk about deer management in Texas. We talk about making the most out of your hunting opportunities, and then passing young deer so that you can have deer for the future and not just going out there with the mentality of it's brown, it's down. Again, going back to my original point, I get nothing out of the thrill of the kill, if you will. That is not why I do this. I have a respect for these animals, and I have a respect for fair chase of these animals, which honestly is kind of where part of my passion for archery has probably developed, is that I getting in there close, having to have everything right, your wind, your scent, your movement, your noise, everything has to be right. You have to hunt smart to hunt long-term successful with a bow and accomplish what you want to accomplish. And that, for me, archery equipment and a bow gives me the opportunity to do that. And it's frustrating. Like I said, there's definitely times where I've thought about, I gotta hang up this whole archery only thing. But there's always experiences that pull me back in. And I've talked about this on the show before, about last year, mid-November, losing a whitetail because a mature whitetail buck, the first mature whitetail buck that I flung an arrow at, in an effort to take him. Like, I felt like it was 10 years that had led up to this buck walked out, and I'm like, this is it. This is the moment when I put a mature whitetail buck on the ground with my bow. And draw back, shoot. There were other circumstances. We talk about it in episode 165, I think. But other circumstances to where I had to judge the yardage. I didn't have time to range him. And I'm very, very confident as an archer and as a marksman. And I judged the yardage that this deer was at I guessed it was, what was it? I guess that he was at about 45 and he was at 41, and he ducked, and it was a quick shot. And there were so many things that came into the poor execution on my part. And that's definitely one of those moments when you hit an animal high, you don't recover it. Sidebar, I am 95% sure that I have trail cam pictures of this deer later in the year coming back. He survived. But when that's sickening to a hunter, that's sickening to a bow hunter, especially a bow hunter that prepares and works very hard to ensure that I'm ready for any situation. I practiced long range. I developed a passion for long range shooting about, 5-6 years ago with a bow, that is. So when all those things are going through your mind and everything, and that's the level of preparation you put into it on the front end, and then you can't fulfill the objective on the back end, that messes with you. And that was one of those moments where it's like, man, am I too prideful? Am I looking at this the wrong way? And then I go to Colorado, and I feel like I've beat that story to death at this point on our podcast and on our shows and everything. But, the first 2 days up there, we're hardly seeing any deer. It's flat. Like, it's really flat. I remember, Tim told me it would be flat, but I remember Drew, our marketing director here at Full Obsession. I'd never been to Tim's place, and Drew had been there before and on a pheasant hunt. And he told me, he's like, hey dude, I know you're going bow only, but I'm telling you right now, it is flat. It is really, really flat. It's like, okay, man. And I get out there, I'm like, man, they weren't joking. This is really, really flat. And again, you're second guessing yourself. Man, am I too prideful? Is this bow only thing too much for even me? And should I be reconsidering this? But it all comes down to the determination and the work you're willing to put in, right? And every hunter, doesn't matter if you hunt with a rifle or a bow or whatever it might be, you're gonna have, I'm talking about this buck, for example, you're gonna have shots and opportunities like that you botch. I've told everybody, anybody who has hunted for a significant amount of time has missed an animal and or lost an animal that they hit. That comes with being a hunter. It's just, there's no way around it at all. And I let that get to me a little bit too much last year before this mule deer hunt. And especially from the fact of I've been practicing out to 100 yards to kill a mule deer, and I can't kill a whitetail at 41. That's going through my mind, like, am I ready for this? And again, it goes down to preparation and being prepared as an archer, and crawling in on this mule deer, getting sub 100 yards on this buck, and starting to realize, like, this might actually happen. And then when it's all said and done, 28 yards, and having a split second to make a shot on a deer that is hard quartering to me. Like, there was no wait for him to turn broadside. If I wait for him to turn broadside, he's gone. This is the only shot you have. And to be able to execute it flawlessly, that then speaks volumes back to preparation and, being ready for something like that. And not consciously like, okay, this is the moment I've trained for, not consciously necessarily like that, but and I say that not in regards to the hunt. Yes, I trained for the hunt. I say that in regards to the exact shot, the exact orientation. But a part of you, like a good marksman, does practice for different scenarios, right? You do practice for, okay, if I have an animal that's quartering away or quartering to, where's my shot placement going to go? And you practice those odd shots and those odd angles and stuff enough to where your hope, at least, is when the moment comes, you can execute it without a whole lot of thought put into it. At least that's my mentality. And then I hunt Texas. I hunt whitetails from a tree stand most of the time if I have any say in the matter. And so when that's the case, with the exception of like this buck, for example, where it's like now or never, most of the time you see him coming in, you have time to get your stuff ready, and you can almost pick your angle. Like, okay, I'm going to wait till he turns. There he is. He's turned. Okay, here we go. Up there, Colorado, it wasn't that. It was, boom, this is your shot, take it or no. And you have 1 second to process all that and figure all that out. Like, that's how it was. So that event, that built confidence back, right? Okay, I can do this. I can bow hunt only. I can do this archery only thing. Like, and then on top of that, you're also rewarded with it, right? I could drive around there and hunt the flatland deer country, for example, with a rifle, and shoot a deer at 200 yards with a rifle and be extremely excited about it. I would be absolutely pumped and ecstatic if I did that, don't get me wrong. But to be able to do this and have an hour and a half stalk, crawling on your hands and knees for almost 200 yards, to get into the same patch of grass that the deer's bedded in, having to play the wind, having to be patient, having to creep inches at a time to make a 28-yard shot on a muley, I don't care how big or how small that mule deer was at that point. You cannot trade that experience. And I want to be careful here because I don't want people to misinterpret what I'm talking about here as the thrill of the kill. That I've already said I don't do it for the thrill of the kill. There's a difference. The thrill of the kill, plain and simple, nothing else built around it, is simply you get enjoyment out of killing an animal. And I think that is the bad light that we as hunters get painted in. And there's certainly individuals out there, we all have known them or run into them over the course of our lifetimes, that probably don't help us out. They probably unknowingly paint hunting and hunters in that light, as far as they just like going out there and killing crap, you know? And that, plain and simple, simplify that, narrow it down to just you get a thrill out of killing an animal. That's not what I'm about. But when I say the experience, right, that the experiences are a part of this, that's a big part of why I do it, right? Because you can, and I can, again, I'm not trying to go off on the therapeutic effect of hunting, but from the mental side and everything, you know, and then you combine it with fair chase, right? I am working my butt off, and I am going out there and giving this animal every opportunity it has to continue doing what it does. But I know that this animal or its species is there for me. It's there for my table, and I am going to work my butt off to earn the kill. I'm going to earn the kill. And that is the side of bow hunting, and in this instance, this spot and stalk and everything, that is rewarding for me, and that I got an adrenaline rush or a thrill out of, if you will, is the accumulation of everything. Because there was all this buildup all until the shot, and then it's like that release. Then you're just ecstatic because you're like, oh my word, I just pulled that off. That just happened. I just worked that hard and it happened. Like, and I'm getting excited talking about it and everything, but I hope I'm not aimlessly rambling here. I hope you guys understand where I'm going with this, is that, you know, we're not just rednecks out there trying to blast stuff away, you know. And there needs to be a respect for the animals that we kill. And I'm not saying that rifle hunters have no respect. That's not at all what I'm saying. But for me personally, Sam Thrash, archery for me is my fair chase. Archery is my journey. Archery is the work that I have to put in to earn my kill, to earn the meat on my table. That's the work I have to do for it, if that makes sense. And when that work pays off, that's what I get excited about, is that work paying off and everything coming together. And I think archery, and again, I'm speaking for me on all this stuff, but I think archery also builds us into better marksmen. I really think so. And I don't think I was very mindful of some of the fundamentals of just shooting and preparation for the shot, preparation for the scenario, for the hunt, whatever it might be, until I started bow hunting. And I've even been naive to the rifle side of it until even recent years, when I've surrounded myself with some very enthusiastic folks who are passionate about rifle hunting and shooting rifles and long range shooting, all this kind of stuff. And they're like, no, we're not the kind of guys that go out there and just put a box through and call it good. Like, we put time and dedication and reps on the range with our rifles to be sure that we can make these shots, especially these long shots. And that makes sense to me, right? I got into long range archery after my 2018 pronghorn hunt. And in 2018, I went to Montana with our marketing director, Drew. He invited me up there on a pronghorn hunt. And I was very fortunate, 41 yards, I shoot a Pope and Young pronghorn. My very first pronghorn on day 3 with my bow. Again, absolutely ecstatic. A lot of work went into that hunt beforehand leading up to that event. So again, just like the mule deer hunt, it was one of those moments that was just everything paid off, right? That was the final reward and accumulation of all the hard work that you had put in as a hunter, as a bow hunter. So we were able to, we pulled that off, but going up there, like my max range that year was probably 65, 70 yards as far as what I had regularly practiced at max and what my setup was built for. And so that year I was like, if I'm coming back up here, I need to be able to shoot out to 100. So the next year, 2019, when I was going back, that was the preparation, right? I got to be able to put stuff in a softball size group at 100 yards. That was my goal. And that is what I worked toward. That is what I trained for all summer. And that's where I got. I kind of fell off of I still had a passion, don't get me wrong, for the long range archery shooting, but I kind of fell off of it a little bit until I knew I was going on this mule deer hunt this last year. And I was like, oh, I got to get back in the game a little bit on some of my long range stuff. Cause I've been kind of hanging at that 60, 70 and under mark for a couple years now, just not going on any Western hunts. I got to get back into this long range thing. And so I did, I got back out there. I started shooting long range again, flinging arrows long distances, but I knew, but I was refreshed on how important all the basic fundamentals are when you add distance, right? We all know that. But then how much easier the shorter shots become when you're used to shooting long range. And I got back into this, I applied the same routines that I applied when I was training in 2019 for the pronghorn hunt. And that was when I started shooting, like my first couple arrows would be at 40. First couple shots out of the gate, boom, boom, 40 yards. Knock them out, get warmed up, get the first few flung, and then 50, and then 60, and then 70. And we start working our way back, and we get all the way out to 100. And then we come back in and we start playing with some oddball ranges, right? And I shoot the sight I ran last year was the CBE 2V Trek Pro, which is a 2-pin sight. It basically functions like a single pin, but it has 2 essentially. And like if your top pin, there's 2 indicators on your tape, 2 pins. And if your top pin is at, let's say, 35 yards on your tape, your bottom pin and the indicator on your bottom pin will read, and I'm speculating, I have to have it in front of me, but it'll read like 46 or something like that. So you have that range, right? That's your pin gap. You have 11-yard pin gap in that particular scenario. And then as you adjust, as you turn that dial, that changes, right? As you get higher up, that pin gap, shortens, right? So now it's, for example, 25 and 32 yards, as the gap. If you go farther away, it widens. So now it's 65 and, 84 yards or something like that. That's your pin gap. So and I'm exaggerating a little bit on those, but that was what I start playing with. Okay, let's put this top pin at 47 yards. Okay, let's make 47-yard shots. Okay, now let's play with our gap. I got an animal, I have it at 47 and that animal runs out 4 yards and is at 51 and I don't have time to adjust my sight. Where am I going to hold? So those are the different scenarios I start putting myself through after I've shot out to those long distances. But every time, before I hang it up and before I call it a day on the archery range, I would come back and I would fling 2 arrows at 30 yards and I would fling 2 arrows at 20 yards. And the only reason that I would do that is not because I'm wondering if I'm still good at 20 or 30 after I've been shooting 40 to 100 and training in that range the whole day, but it's simply to build confidence in my mind. Because I'll shoot those 30-yard shots and I'll be like, man, that was easy. And then I'll shoot those 20-yard shots, those last two. And I'm like, holy cow, that was easy. And I know that in Texas, at least, where my whitetail setups are, that's going to be 90% of my stuff. That's my bread and butter. And it just, again, it puts a smile on my face, and it builds that confidence that if I have an animal that close, I got this. There is nothing that's going to go wrong. My fundamentals, anchor points, your grip, all that kind of stuff, everything has to be the same. Everything has to be right 100% of the time for those long range shots. If you build that muscle memory, you have everything right for those 100-yard shots, those 20 and 30s, I mean, it's a putting green at that point. It is so incredibly easy. And again, it just builds that confidence. And I think using it, just because it's my most recent example, my mule deer hunt, I feel like with that in particular, I had that deer at 28 yards. I knew that deer was at 28 yards or was going to within a yard, give or take, of that when he stood up. I knew that's where he was going to be. And again, that close, I never worried for 1 second about anything. I knew that when he stood up, I was in a second going to have to make a decision on, okay, what angle is he and where am I going to place my shot? Like, that's the decision I have to make. But as far as everything else, it is the last thing I'm thinking about because it's already programmed in my mind. It is already there and it's already ready to rock and roll. So that's my routine, right? That may work for some, that may not work for others. You might have your own routine that, that you go through and that you do on a regular basis. And hey man, if it works for you, then don't change anything. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, But that's my mindset, at least. And that's where Sam Thresh is right now in regards to archery, in regards to why I am archery only. And I know that there's always going to be people that will poke fun at me or that will ask me, why don't you hunt with a gun? You're going on this crazy hunt. Why don't you hunt with a gun? But for all this stuff that I've rambled on and on about in this episode, this is why. This is where my mind's at, and this is what bow hunting means to me. And despite the frustrations, despite the doubt that undoubtedly comes from time to time, this is what I get back to, is my passion and my love for archery, my respect for fair chase, my respect for the animals, and my respect and my determination to put in the work that it takes for a successful hunt. That's where my mind is. And, there's folks that get it. There's folks that don't. That's fine. You don't have to get it. But, yeah, that's where I want to continue to take my doing journey. And then there's other people that inspire me, right? There's other people that are my motivation to keep doing this. Excuse me. And I mentioned him at the beginning of this episode, but Brett Rossell, the backcountry bow hunter, guy I just recently podcasted with, that is a bow only guy. I want to get him back on my podcast to talk about the bow only aspect and to dive into this with him, because he has the same mentality that I'm going to hunt everything with a bow. Other bigger names in the industry that, have influenced me over the years, Levi Morgan, that's a guy that goes after everything with a bow. And I watch Levi's shows, and watching that dude fling an arrow, I saw a video the other day where he killed a pronghorn at like 110 yards or something with his bow. It was ridiculous. And I'm just, again, that takes work. That takes some serious work to just effortlessly and confidently execute a shot like that. Cam Hanes is another one. Cam Hanes is a beast. We all know that. But been a bow hunt only guy for a long time. And I watched his recent film, Once We Were Wolves, not that long ago. And I think it was either in that film or in the podcast that he put out around the same time as that film. that he talked about his desire to only bow hunt, and this particular hunt from that film was the an Alaskan grizzly hunt, if I recall. And things got pretty gnarly, but Cam's mentality is, if I can't kill it with a bow, then it's gonna kill me. And literally he's I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he says something like that on a show. I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, guys. I don't know. Like, I still want to come home at the end of the day. Man, a bear with a bow would be pretty cool, but I might have a firearm just as life support for myself sitting there just in case things got hairy, But that's the line that guys draw under those circumstances, and Cam drew his line very definitively in the sand, especially on that hunt with if I can't kill it with a bow, then it can kill me. And man, that's just, again, I don't know if I'll ever get to that point. But other guys that are local to me too, I know some awesome guys in this realm, in the hunting realm, that are very passionate archers. There's a gentleman that we had on our show a while back. I'm trying to get him back on the show, and maybe by this time this episode drops, I have had him back on the show. I don't know, but Jesse Johnson, he's a bow only guy for the most part, and I think he does do some muzzleloader hunting actually, but I want to talk to him about it on the show and everything. But very exclusively a bow hunter, a trad bow hunter. On top of that, he sold his compound bow and got rid of his compound bow, went trad only. So that's a whole nother level of fair chase and bow hunting effort that goes into something like that. So all these people influence me and inspire me, right? And watching their shows, or the opportunities I have with the people out of that group and beyond that group that I do get to talk to personally, they inspire me to keep doing this and to keep this archery only journey going. My mule deer hunt inspired me to keep it going because I'm out there in rifle country, one of the most challenging environments that you can be in as a bow hunter. I'm also hunting on a farm and in an area where, to the Burgess family and the folks that invited us out there, they've never had anybody come out there with a bow and kill an animal before. And I humbly, as humbly as you can, I wear that as a badge of honor. Like, yes, I put in the work to go out there and to kill one with a bow and to get it done out there. I will proudly and as humbly as you can, say that, yes, I'm the first person to their knowledge to kill a deer out there with a bow. I'm proud of that. That took a lot of work. And those experiences, all the stuff that we've talked about, and this is what makes up Archery Only. This is why. This is why every year on that tag, it's gonna say Archery Only. Doesn't matter where I'm going, doesn't matter what I'm hunting. You heard it here. Archery Only. So, thank you guys for listening. I feel like, just like the previous solo podcast, I got off on a little bit of a rocky rant there, maybe in the middle with this episode, but this is another thing I'm passionate about. This archery is a passion. It's not a pastime. It is a passion for me, and I'm 110% in on being a bow hunter and continuing to be a bow hunter. And it's not because I look down on rifle hunters or whatever other weapon or means that you choose. It's simply because that's where I find peace. That's where I find fair chase. That's where I find respect. That's where I find my drive is in bow hunting. And that's where I want to put in the work. So thanks for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. I got some feedback after the last solo episode, positive feedback on that, and definitely some stuff from that I took as far as, things that I can learn from or do better on, or, just change. And I want more feedback, guys. I want to know what you guys think of these solo episodes. And like I said at the beginning, I did not plan on this episode being right now, or this episode being as close to the last solo podcast in regards to when we published. But it was something that's just been hanging out on my mind. And some recent conversations I've had with some individuals inspired me to go ahead and record an episode about this. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think, either of this topic or of the solo podcast. I don't care if you comment. I don't care if you send us a message on a social media platform or through the website, whatever it might be. Send me an email, text me if you have my number, all that kind of stuff. Let me know what you think of this episode. Let me know what you think of the solo podcast. I want your honest opinions. Good, bad, anywhere in between. In the meantime, though, we will be back again next week with another Fall Obsession podcast, as we always are. Be sure that you guys are following and subscribed on whatever platform you're listening on. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out not just this podcast, but Texas Dirt, Midwest Mindset. Those are two of our TV shows that we have on Carbon TV. Dropping new episodes very soon, so tune in to all that. And with that, I'm going to hang it up and wind down. We're going to be back again with you guys again next week for another podcast, and I will catch y'all then.